Hey, welcome back to No Clients Allowed. I'm Kyle, and this is part 2 of a 2-part video where I'm going to show you guys how to screen print via a super quick walkthrough. And I want to acknowledge that the pacing of this video is going to be pretty fast, but my intention here is to give you guys an overhead view of all the steps throughout the printing process. But not to worry, I'll be explaining all of these steps in much greater detail in upcoming videos, so be sure to subscribe to this channel if you're interested in learning more about that. If you missed part 1, the link to that is in the description below, but enough about that, let's get back into it. When we left off, we just exposed our screen and it washed out beautifully, with the exception of a hair that got stuck in the emulsion, but luckily it didn't interfere with our design. Now we take our screen and we put it on the press to get it aligned and registered. Before we do this though, I like to fire up my flash and conveyor dryer so that they can preheat as we work on this other stuff. So back to the screens, there are a few ways that we can do this. For this particular press, I just took a Sharpie and drew a line straight down the center of my platen. I take my original transparency, which has all of my registration marks, and I just match up the center lines. Then I tape the transparency onto the platen to keep it in place while I align my screen to the transparency that's on the platen. We have to tape up the edges of the screen. This seals up the corners and makes the cleanup process a lot easier. You can buy screen printing tape from suppliers like Ryonet and they work great. But honestly, I prefer to use this 2-inch wide paper packaging tape. I just buy this from U-Haul, and even though I don't think it's cheaper per se, I still prefer this because it's much easier to handle and I can quickly peel it from the roll and rip it super easily. It's just a lot easier as opposed to the traditional plastic tape, which I have to cut with scissors and it takes me forever to find the edge on the roll, whatever that's called. But use whatever tape you want as long as it's not super sticky to the point where it could ruin the screen. So definitely don't use duct tape. Once I have all 4 edges of the inside taped up, I lift the screen up and add tape to the back where all the registration marks are. Now we have to get our ink. For this design, I only need black ink, so I just grab my container of black ink and put a dollop on my screen. By the way, I'm using Plastisol ink. The brand is called FN Ink, and I highly recommend it. One great thing about this particular brand is that it has a relatively low curing temperature of, I believe, 260 degrees Fahrenheit. It's also relatively cheap. And I should mention that there are 2 main types of ink that's used in printing on apparel. There's Plastisol ink and water-based ink. Water-based ink has a softer, more natural feel to it compared to Plastisol, but if you're just starting out, I highly recommend sticking with Plastisol ink. It's far easier to use and much more universal. We're almost at the printing stage, but before we can do that, we should run some test prints to make sure everything looks good. So let's grab a squeegee and some adhesive for our platen. We'll get our surface nice and sticky, and I'm going to grab an old t-shirt or a rag or something like that and put it on the platen. Then I'll use that to run a test print and see how it looks. If it doesn't look right, you'll have to troubleshoot the problem and try to fix it. But in this case, it looks great, and I'm going to run it through the dryer, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to check the temperature as it comes out to ensure that the ink is fully cured. Remember, we're checking for a temperature of at least 260 degrees Fahrenheit. It was reading at about 300, which is good. I like to keep it around 300 just to be on the safe side. This is it. This is the step that we've all been waiting for. And done. That's it. This was all for one single shirt. I mean, I printed this just for the sake of the video, but we take our shirt in for all of its glory and we carefully pull it off the platen and we put it through the conveyor dryer to get it cured. And now it's time to clean up our mess. Well, this might be my least favorite part, but we definitely got to do it. I'll lay down the screen and scrape up all the excess ink and put it back into the container so that we don't waste it. Then we take some ink degrader and some paper towels and we try to scrape off as much ink as we can. It doesn't have to be perfectly clean because the rest will come off with the pressure washer when we clean up the screens later, which if you remember, we already did that in the part 1 video. Once the ink is cleaned up, I remove the tape and that's about it. Well, it's definitely a lot of work, but it can be really fun. There is just so many different methods and techniques when it comes to screen printing. And this isn't even the tip of the iceberg, to be honest, but I hope this at least gives you an idea of what's involved and how it all works. Maybe before you watched this video, you had absolutely no idea what screen printing even was, but now hopefully maybe you have some sort of fundamental understanding of what it is. And like I said in the beginning, there's going to be some more how-to videos coming soon. I also plan on talking about how I run the business, and maybe I'll even throw in some graphic design videos every now and then. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I guess I'll see you guys next time, so please go away.